Hey everyone. I felt like life was going a little bit too well for me and decided to ruin my mental health for a bit by playing some competitive Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Specifically, I participated in Lounge, which is a competitive way to play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe where players vote on one of 5 team formats and then compete in a set of 12 races to try and outscore all their opponents. At the end of the set, you gain or lose MMR based on how well you did. And given that I haven't played one of these things in years, let's just say that my races went less than ideal. So I sought the help of Gyrodos, a literal pro when it comes to playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe competitively online, and a fellow content creator here on YouTube. This is the first video in a little 2-part mini-series that we've got going on, the other of which is going to be on his channel, where we go through and analyze some of the races and the events that I played to see what I did well and what I did not so well. He provided a lot of really awesome feedback from these races that I just know is going to help take your skills to the next level as well. Hope you all enjoy. Before we kind of jump into that and kind of talk about what some things that I could be doing better. It might be good to actually introduce yourself first so that people know that that you're legit, that you got the credentials.
Hello everyone, my name is Gyrodos. I'm hovering right now between Ruby 1 and Ruby 2, which is about top 100 in the world.
Yeah, so obviously a lot higher than me. So I think I'm pretty sure we're gonna get some really good info today. So it looks like the first one we're gonna be going over is Athens, right?
Yes, so I'm not going to go over too much of the beginning. So you drove this beginning section very well, and we're going to go over what happens here. So here you pull Red Shroom, which is a very good item pull to have in second. Gives you protection and also a potential blue dodge if the guy backs out. And we see the early blue come out. Now, regardless of whether or not you saw this blue, I would try and keep both the red and the shroom here. Also, if you're not planning on chaining your shroom here, it's very likely that you could get redded here.
So one thing you mentioned, yeah, if we can pause it right after this so we can look forward a bit. One thing that I had a question on was I've heard in or seen in other streams where people will use the red here because it will sort of force first place to use whatever defense they have on the red, and then they'll be forced to take a blue. I think that's probably what my thought process was at this point. Is that generally just not something I should have done because the blue came out early, or is that just generally not a good play?
I think if you have double protection here, if you have something like a red-green or you have something like 2 reds, I think that's a very fine play to make, especially because you want to get a potential blue dodge in pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that combination already of red shell and blue dodge, so whether it's a horn or a mushroom, you want to be keeping that for as long as you possibly can, because you're in second right now. If first ever gets blued, you're going to be in first with that protection and blue dodge item, which is
Mm-hmm.
the ideal combination to have when you're in first. And then this right here, what you do after you get hit every time is very indicative of how you should be playing. So here, unfortunately, you shroomed up and instantly ran into this wall head on.
Yeah.
But regardless of whether it would have propelled you into a better spot, I think this is a good lesson to everyone to basically say everyone needs to break this habit of shrooming right after you get hit if you have one, because what you do when you shroom is you're saying I want to get up to top speed as quick as possible, but in actuality you should be focused on how you get your coins up after you get hit and what you should be doing with the items you have rather than just immediately using them. All right, so we get to this part of the race where you actually made the correct decision in stopping for this box. I see a lot of players who just don't really respect the other players and just always press A and always hold forward no matter what. So I'm glad you did this where you waited at the set just to see if he took it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you pull Golden Bill and you make the correct decision in using your golden immediately since you're just so far behind. And another play I really like here is the fact that you don't use your bill straight away. Now you definitely could have, and I think this might be able to take you around the turn regardless. But the fact that you thought about this and said, okay, I'm just going to actually wait until the set so that way I make sure I don't, pass too many people before it would drop me off. Because you actually go very fast on gliders with bills compared to everyone else, or compared to you would normally be going on like the ground, for example. So if you use that bill in the cut, you might have been able to pass too many people and get dropped off in a very weird spot.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you got into the set basically immediately after your bill is a very good sign because now you're able to just use your stars right away. So I really liked how you handled that situation.
Yeah, I think I remember what's coming up, and I think the rest of this race is kind of a disaster.
Um, well, I think you remembered wrong because the rest of this race
Oh, is this a
is
different
actually
Athens
pretty
then?
normal. Maybe
Okay.
I don't know. But
Okay, no,
yeah,
this was fine. There was another Athens where I just totally just dumped the bed and like ended up in 12th.
I will say the one thing I would change is I would either throw your red way earlier or I would hold it for the rest of the race just because
Mm-hmm.
here you're not going to be able to hit the CC guy in front of you.
Yeah.
And I would try and figure out probably by this point when you're in midair, I'd probably try and use a little bit of rear view to see if there's any
Oh
potential
yeah.
reds behind you to see if you can actually red this guy. And if you don't see any reds, you can just red him. And if he doesn't have anything under this, then you're redding him on the line. You're getting an extra spot. And if he does, if you're looking back to see what people behind you and you don't see any reds, very, very unlikely that they have a pocket red to kill you at the very end that would still reach you. So,
Yeah.
all right. And the next race we're going to be going over is DK Jungle. We're going to be going over more of general item management rather than just how to manage your items in the front. On this track, DKJ, a lot of people know how to take the super bounce very well, even if they're getting bumped. And I think uh, that's going to show throughout like the whole race here. So, and the super bounce saves like a whole ton of time. So you're
Yeah.
going to want to know how to get that consistently with every single lap you drive.
Yeah, I think this is one of those tracks where I know how to do the super bounce, or like I think I could figure it out just watching a video and being like, oh yeah, that's the setup. I just haven't played this track in such a long time that I kind of just I haven't played most of the base tracks in such a long time that I kind of just wing it whenever I'm doing them.
Yeah, yeah. What my recommendation would be is whenever you have like downtime in between different mogies, is to just practice a track that you really thought your driving was poor at in a certain event. So like, I I don't want to bash you on your driving because that's not what we're here for, obviously. But I think this would be the example I would use as a track to like practice in between, as a sort of guide. Like, and the best way to improve your driving is to not look at the world record, but to look at the Shroomless world record because that uses the
Yeah.
meta combos that everybody's going to be using online.
Yeah.
So here's the first part of the race I would really want to go over. You played pretty decently besides the driving for the rest of it. So here you pull horn triple shrooms. So you actually end up holding your horn through this set.
All
I
right.
don't believe your teammate's not in first. I believe he's tagged WW, and this guy's, I think, a T member.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think your teammate's in first. So that's not why you're holding the horn. My guess is that you just think this is really good protection and that you want to keep this for a while or basically as long as you can. This is also another good part about minimap reading. If you knew that the Black Yoshi was so far ahead, you might have actually considered training it at first set to maybe even pull a dodge, which is unlikely, but it's possible because of
Mm-hmm.
how far ahead Black Yoshi is.
I see.
But I don't dislike the play that you make here. Well, at least this play initially, which is to hold your horn until the latest I think you should hold this till is second set. And the reason why is you hold this horn to protect yourself from any ghost that would take your shrooms. This is a big part about any items you get. If you have an item you want to protect, like let's say you're in the back, you probably want to be protecting something like a star or a bill. You want to be doing that either with a less good item or just the item in hand in general. So like horn is a good example. This isn't better than triple shrooms, I'd say, in this instance because there's a cut coming up. So here I would have used the horn just because it's best that you use the horn here so that way you can take the cut that's right next to the set. However, the rare circumstance would be if there was a red white behind you. Now, this is where rear view really comes into play. If you were
Mm-hmm.
using rear view right before the set, then you would have able to identify whether or not there was a red behind you. If you want to know exactly where the best ways to use your rear view is basically on long straights, whenever you're in the air or whenever you're on glider. So a good example would be on the super bounce or once you bounce off the flower, you can't really control your trajectory
Mm-hmm.
beyond that. So it would be a good idea to use your rear view there just to see what items people have behind you. And then when you're on the bridge, if you, be beyond when you see this green shell get backed here, So like, let's say you're trying to avoid the green shell, you see it go past you. This would be a very good time to use your rear view right before the set, just to say to yourself, okay, what do I want to do with this horn? Do I want to chain it, or is there red right behind me and I want to hold it just in case he throws it at me? Black Yoshi is so far ahead. You're going to be pulling good items from this next set, and that's what's so important about minimap reading is you can actually assess that situation on the fly rather than having to guess because of if you just look at the person ahead of you and you don't look at the minimap, you could assume they're probably close to the bridge rather than almost on the glider. It's not only that, but also the people behind you are going to be pulling better items. So they're going to be pulling things like stars, things like triple greens, triple reds.
Yeah.
And those items are going to be harder to defend against with a horn rather than pulling something like triple greens, which is possible from this set. If you pull triple greens and the guy behind you has triple reds, you're going to be able to defend it against that. But if you have a horn here, that's not going to be possible. So yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The guy behind you pulled Star Plant, which is, it's a crazy pull to think about in fourth, but
Yeah.
when you consider how far ahead first is, it's not that crazy. So, and the guy behind you also just pulled a star. Then you see triple reds. Luckily for you, you pulled Ghost at the end, which made you invincible for the rest of the race. And yeah, you ended up getting a nice 6 out of this. All right, the last race we're going to be going over in this video is GBA Mario Circuit. Now, this is a very common bagger, and basic you also bag during this race, so it's going to be a good lesson for people who want to know how to bag.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah, I would hope that it's a good lesson on what to do, but knowing that I suck at bagging, I don't know how to do it at all. I kind of just wing it every time, so I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of. This is why everything you did was like totally just awful.
Well, okay. First off, I want to say, don't ever, and I mean ever, if you're bagging, do not hit this boost panel. It is a death sentence. Don't do it. Okay, it just sends you so far, and you'd rather be more flexible and stay off the boost panel and like try and get to the set as soon as possible.
I see.
But once you hit the boost panel, you've got to realize that at this point you're already pretty far behind from first. So you just got to take the box and go. You don't stop at this set because there's already a lot of people running as well. So you got to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you're bagging, you got to weigh how many people are bagging, how many people are running. If there's 12 people bagging, you can afford to stop at the set for a lot longer than you would if half the lobby is running.
Yeah, but what if it's like just first and second that are running? Like, I feel like it's kind of the same thing, right? Where if first and second are both running, then the race should be over sooner, right? Or is that not the case?
It would be over in a similar time compared to if everyone was running, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the main two ways you gauge it, is whether or not 12 people bag or whether or not anyone runs. But at the same time, if everyone's bagging, there's way more likely of a chance to be shock because there's going to be more people at distance to pull shock. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's more likely that the race is going to be prolonged in the long term rather than in the short term where everyone's bagging and the race is literally taking longer because it's taking longer for people to get to the finish line. The number one priority you should have when you're bagging is to get your coins up as soon as possible. To get them up to 10. Because once you get them up to 10, that means you don't have to worry about them basically for the rest of the race. But if you have less than 10 coins, you're going to be at a disadvantage to people who do have 10 coins and are bagging. And then here it's kind of debatable because of how long you stayed in the back. But under normal circumstances, I would say to hold this star basically until you get to the set.
Okay.
And I'll show right away why exactly that it is. So let's just imagine you start at the set. If you start at this set, it would have covered a spam shock from this set, which is a lot more common than you think. And it also would have taken you through the shortcuts on the left here, the two shortcuts coming up. And your pull here is Star Bill. So Star Bill is an excellent pull for this track. And the reason why, and this would have been really good had you kept your star, because the star would have gotten you past both these cuts. It would have caught up you a little bit to the pack. You would have been able to use your star optimally at... Do you know what the star cut is on this track?
The star cut?
Yes, where the star takes you through like the maximum amount of cuts. So where you use your star is use it not here, but you use it basically at the second cut right here, and it takes you from into this cut, it takes you through both of these shroom cuts all the way to the last straight. And that covers a lot of off-road, and it catches you up a lot. So how I would have handled this situation is star into the set, and then once I see star Bill, I would have held my star until I got to that star cut on lap 2, and then used my Bill in the Bill extension lap 3. And that covers the most common shock spots. How you want to do the extension is you want to make sure you're in the middle of the off-road by the time you bill. So like you want to bill basically where the bill is right now. So that way it takes you directly through the cut instead of like doing this like little swerve thing. I don't know why it did this in this specific instance, but if you have just a lone bill and you don't have like a star to take you through the cut, you want to get like a mini turbo and then hop through it once or twice to make sure you're in the middle of it. So that way it takes you directly through it. But if this ever happens, if you're unsure whether or not you're going to get a bill extension, you want to hold tight on the next few turns to give you that chance of still getting it. I think you do hold tight there, but I'm not too sure. And then here your golden usage. Right now, if you hold this golden to the golden cut, which the golden cut is the same thing as the star cut, by the way, but you just golden one cut earlier.
Okay.
Because goldens last a little bit longer than stars do. So the fact that you use it here is actually really good because of the fact that you're so far away from first. You need to be able to catch up before the next item set, and this is very good process because if you pull anything other than blue shell or ghost, this is going to be a good play.
Also doesn't help I pulled like literally the worst possible item here.
Exactly. So that's the next part I want to go over is process over results. So we just talked about how it was like an 80% chance that you were going to get a good item that would help you for the rest of the race. Blue is like the worst item you could have pulled here by a long shot. So you should not say to yourself, oh, I shouldn't have used my golden there. I should have just used it in the golden cut so that way when I pulled blue here, I would have been able to salvage myself a good spot. That's not how you should be thinking about the game. You should be thinking about it as, okay, what is my probability of getting good items here? Should I be using my items based off that? So basically, I'd say your biggest strengths overall are your driving for the 96 tracks. So you have a good idea of how to drive even the uncommon tracks and the ones that aren't picked so often. Your item management is very good, and your process with item management is very good, and I really like how you think about the game. And your general awareness, just with how the items are surrounding you, is a very those are your three biggest strengths in my opinion. But your biggest weaknesses are the way you look at minimap and the way you look at rear view, and driving on the tech heavy or the common tracks.
So let me take a quick break there because I want to see so what are the tracks that you think are probably the most common for for other people that are thinking about getting into lounge? Like what are the tracks that they really need to learn if they want to make sure that they can not sort of make some of those same mistakes?
So I actually have a video on this on my channel for top 10 best tracks to master.
I'll make sure to drop that as a link in the description too.
Shameless self plug, but
yeah, that's why we're here.
But I'd say for the best tracks to learn, the most common runner is Wario Stadium. The most tech heavy common tracks are DK Jungle and Waluigi Stadium. And then in terms of tracks you don't really need to know how to learn, but more of how you manage your items, are the bagging tracks like Mario Circuit, Cheeseland, Dry Desert. Those tracks you want to be practicing. You want to be like maybe going over after the race what you should have done instead. That's like a good idea or a good way to process how you get better at that track. I'd say probably like 95% are things that you can actually control, and then the 5% is like, oh, I really couldn't do anything about this situation. The 95%, it's kind of difficult to know exactly where to point those out, but I hope in my video, which is a part 2, I guess, of this little mini series we got going, I'm going to be going over exactly how to spot those things so that you can know how to look for your process over results.
Like Gyrodos said, we are going to be doing at least one more video to kind of, send some people over his way as well, because I think that he's very good at the game and he's got a lot of stuff to teach, because I think people know me as more of a time trialer, and time trialing is really only one part of the game. And I think that you are a very good person to learn how to actually play the game if your goal is to really improve. So I'm going to put links to some of the videos that you mentioned in the description. I'll also put a link to your channel, obviously, and so definitely go check Gyrodos out. Give him some love. Go subscribe, and we'll see you over there in the next video.
See you guys. Bye bye.